Well, things aren't looking too good in the trial of old Kyle Rittenhouse. I'm afraid that and I don't want to take too much credit for it because I'm certainly not the only person who predicted this, but my predictions that this was the most likely outcome was a mistrial, unfortunately, looks to be the case. When I said mistrial, I more specifically meant hung jury. Now, we're also talking about other kinds of mistrials now, so I do want to point that out. I will not be right if there's a mistrial declared because of some sort of procedural dispute where the prosecutors knowingly or unknowingly withheld evidence from the defense. That is not what I was talking about when I was predicting that there would be a mistrial. I was predicting a hung jury where the jury could not reach a verdict, which, as of right now, they have not reached a verdict. That in and of itself has been a surprise to quite a few people online, it would seem. People who thought, oh, this is a slam dunk, they'll go out and in an hour and a half, 90 minutes, they'll come back just like with the Chauvin jury, and they will have their verdict. And in this case, unlike with Chauvin, they will acquit on all charges, and, we'll be on our way. But that's just not the case. They deliberated all day yesterday. Then they went home for the evening. They've been deliberating all day today. Now they want to look at video evidence, which that in of itself has been delayed quite a bit. They want to review some of the evidence, but apparently the evidence that they are asking to review was not properly disclosed to the defense until after the end of the trial over this weekend. You might remember this really tiny drone footage, which, oddly enough, the detective on the case, they had him testify to bring this in, the lead detective. He said he saw it on Tucker Carlson, which I thought, well, that's strange. Wouldn't you get footage like this, from an eyewitness who actually recorded it, not from Tucker? And they didn't even bring Tucker in to testify, and they didn't get the video from him. They say, oh, well, somebody just gave it to us. And now we got it, which sounds very, very fishy. And so they come in right at the last day or two before the end of the trial, and they weasel in this new evidence, which, to me, I've looked at it a million times. I can't see a damn thing on it. They say, when they zoom in 40 times, and then try and, enhance the image and interpolate, they claim that Kyle is pointing his rifle left-handed at Zeminski. Now, I think that's a huge stretch, but that's what that's the case that the prosecution decided to make in their closing arguments. Now, unfortunately, they did not actually provide this same footage to the defense ahead of time so that the defense could, formulate a defense to it. The defense was handed an even more useless piece of video that was about 212p, less than 240p. It was 212 pixels tall. And so it was an absolute mess. You couldn't see anything. It was a joke. And so if I looked at that at the defense and they gave me this video and they said, hey, we want to admit this new video, here's a copy of it, and I look at that and I go, oh, this is a joke. You can't see a damn thing. Now, you can't see much in the video that they actually did present, but the video that they did end up presenting is way clearer. And so obviously the defense would have been better prepared to argue in court about that had they seen the actual full resolution image, which I believe was like 840 pixels tall. So about 4 times the resolution. Or I shouldn't even say that. It's not 4 times the resolution. Anyway, my point is it's significantly higher resolution. And you know what? I'll try and throw up the comparison between the two so that you can see it. Now, ADA wide boy Jim Krause tried to blame this on everybody but himself. He decided to try and blame it on an attorney who never spoke during the trial, the woman who was sitting at the table there with Richards, Sharafazi, and Rittenhouse. Her name, I guess, is Wizco. You get a bunch of these hard-to-say names, unusual names in this trial. But Wizco was the one who Krause sent this video to, and he said, oh, well, it must be because she has an Android. And you see, I sent it from an iPhone, and it must have been compressed by her phone, which is ridiculous. I mean, when you're sending an image and the video is automatically compressed, if that's what happened, that happens on the sender side. There's no point in compressing a video after it's already been sent. You compress a video to make it easier to send so that you have less data to transfer. But thankfully, Wisco, had a great response to this. She absolutely shredded Krause's ridiculous explanation, and she said, no, you see here, the file name is completely different from the file that you had, so you didn't send me the same file that you had, Mr. Krause, and the metadata shows that the file that you sent me was created 21 minutes and 19 seconds after the file that you used. So it looks like, hey, you had your file, you created another file that was lower resolution and sent that one to me. And Krause still stands by, well, I didn't know, they never brought this up, and blah, 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 which of course they had no way of knowing that they were given a lower resolution, version of the video until Krause stupidly pointed it out on Friday, and about how much higher resolution his video was, like he was bragging about it as if it was something to be proud of. So now he's at the point of trying to say, okay, yeah, sure, I didn't give you the evidence ahead of time, which is cause for mistrial, or grounds for mistrial, because you can't just deny the defense access to the evidence that you're going to present in court. But it gets worse. Someone has discovered that the computer that Krause has been using for evidence during the trial, or that the prosecutors, rather, both of them have been using for evidence during the trial, has Handbrake installed on it. And you can see the shortcut right there, in footage, in the past when they're kind of just, in between images pulling up a video, you can see Handbrake is installed on their computer. And what does Handbrake do? Well, Handbrake is a software that you use to, recompile and process videos, and potentially, something you could do with Handbrake is compress a video into a smaller file. And so, it kind of looks like what happened was old ADA Wide Boy decided to pull one over on the defense and use Handbrake to compress this footage down so that they could not be as well prepared as they otherwise would be when the full resolution image was presented in court. Now, regardless of how much of a difference that actually makes in their ability to prepare, the fact that that they are two separate pieces of evidence, that he did not give them the exact piece of evidence, the article, or the exhibit that he ended up presenting, from what I understand, is in and of itself a big no-no. Just like violating Kyle Rittenhouse's Fifth Amendment right to be, presumed innocent despite his silence. When Binger questioned Rittenhouse's silence, remember, that was a grave constitutional violation, which also should have led to a mistrial. But unfortunately, the judge's temperament just doesn't line up with that. The judge sees this as a very high-profile case. He came in today, he was very upset with how the media has been talking about him. He's clearly very flustered by the media coverage, and he is, frankly, afraid to do the right thing and declare a mistrial. He knows, you can tell by looking at him. He thinks there should be a mistrial. Now, if there was more pushback from the defense, as other people pointed out, would it have been more likely that he declared a mistrial? Probably, because to me, it did look like he was right. It was right on the tip of his tongue. And if I were sitting there and I were the defense, which again, easy for me to say, I'm not a lawyer, but I mean, just, looking at it, what you would scream, what you're screaming at the TV is, hey, declare a mistrial. This is bad, The well's already been poisoned, Judge. These people have seen this evidence. This evidence was not admitted properly. We were not given it. The trial was not carried out properly. Ergo, it is a mistrial. You just have to declare it. But unfortunately, the judge has made it clear that he wants this trial to, progress normally, which I think is why he's upset at the prosecution, because they were making that very difficult with all of their grounds for mistrial that they've been giving him. He does not want the prosecution to screw up this bad. He wants the trial to go normally. He wants it to go to the jury, and he wants the jury to reach a verdict fairly. Now, I think it's pretty clear what the judge is hoping is that if he can just let all this slide, for long enough, then the jury, will come to a not guilty verdict on all counts, and this can all go away, and we can forget about all of these bad things the prosecution has done. But he's going to be in quite the pickle if they convict Rittenhouse on any of these charges after the prosecution has done all of these things to prejudice them, Kyle's case. Because it'll be pretty clear that he was, unfairly found guilty. Because the judge gave all of this leeway to the prosecution, seemingly because he thought it would make a difference. Now, from what we're hearing, thankfully, it does seem like there is a majority of the jurors who are in favor of acquitting Kyle on all charges, and there are a few holdouts. Considering the holdouts are in the minority, I do not think that we're at an imminent risk of the jury. If the jury reaches a unanimous decision, I don't think it's going to be, convicting him across the board. So it doesn't look like Kyle's going to be convicted of murder. But they could have potentially a split verdict where they have a compromise and they agree on one of the lesser includeds. And in that case, the judge is in quite a pickle because Kyle will have been found wrongfully convicted. And it's wrong by definition because, the trial was not carried out correctly. And that would have happened on his watch. But at that point, once Kyle's been found guilty, as far as the media is concerned, it's going to be very, very difficult for the judge to set aside that verdict. Even if he thinks that's the right thing to do, I'm not very confident that the judge will. I think he'll be far too concerned about what CNN is saying about him. And I mean, he's brought up the media multiple times. He's called out Jeffrey Toobin by name. He worries about what these people say about his decisions. And so he knows full well what they would say if he set aside the verdict at the end of this. Because in hindsight, he goes, you know what? All of these abuses by the prosecution, they were bad. And so therefore this trial is, null and void. And whether that's with prejudice or without prejudice, meaning whether or not the prosecution can come back and try Kyle again, I think it's going to be very difficult for the judge. So we're all on pins and needles, as Desi Arnaz would say. So with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.